Extra basesJames Paxton's gem for the Mariners on Tuesday was only the second Major League no-hitter thrown by a Canadian. Not even the Hall of Famer Ferguson Jenkins threw one. May 12, 2018 image. James Paxton, a Mariners pitcher from Ladnor, British Columbia, showed off his maple leaf tattoo after pitching a no-hitter against the Blue Jays on Tuesday in Toronto. Credit Fred Thornhill/The Canadian Press, via Associated Press. As he watched James Paxton twirl a no-hitter on Tuesday, Paul Quantrill was not conflicted at all. Quantrill works for the Toronto Blue Jays as a special assistant, and he always wants his team to win. But Quantrill is also a Canadian, with the most Major League pitching appearances of anyone born in his country, so he was proud of Paxton, the Seattle Mariners left-hander from Ladnor, British Columbia, who humbled the Blue Jays on 99 dazzling pitches. "He was just lights out," Quantrill said by phone the next day. "He was hitting 100 miles an hour in the 9th inning, so he really had it going on, every pitch, all night." "Probability of us making a comeback was looking pretty slim, so I guess if we had to be no-hit, I was happy it was him." Quantrill, a right-hander from London, Ontario, who pitched in 841 games from 1992 to 2005, said he was surprised to learn that only one other Canadian had thrown a no-hitter, Dick Fowler of the 1945 Philadelphia Athletics. The former pitcher Paul Quantrill, who is now a special assistant to the Blue Jays, has the most Major League pitching appearances of anyone born in Canada. Credit Ezra Shaw/Getty Images. "I would have guessed Fergie Jenkins," Quantrill said, "but Jenkins, the only Canadian in the Baseball Hall of Fame, never did it." 49 shutouts, Jenkins said by phone on Wednesday with a laugh. "But with no-hitters, you've got to have a bit of luck involved. There's always some good plays, some good circumstances. You've got to consider yourself pretty fortunate to do it." Jenkins threw 2 one-hitters, for the Texas Rangers in 1974 and 1979. Quantrill was mostly a reliever, but he did throw a 2-hit shutout for Boston in 1993, when manager Butch Hobson gave him a spot start in place of an injured Roger Clemens. "He pulled me off the field and we made an agreement," Quantrill said. "I told him, 'Butch, I'm tired of getting pulled after 5 because you think I can't go. Leave me alone until they start hitting me.' They got 2 hits early and no hits the rest of the game." Fowler was an unlikely predecessor for Paxton. He had not earned a victory in nearly 3 years before blanking the St. Louis Browns in the second game of a doubleheader, and he had just been hit hard in 3 relief outings after a long layoff during World War II. "I came out of the Canadian Army and I was hog-fat, at least 35 pounds overweight," Fowler said in 1947, according to an article on the Canadian Baseball Network. "I can honestly say I was never in worse shape in my life." Fowler, whose gem took a tidy 75 minutes, pitched 10 seasons for the A's, with a 66-79 career record. Even so, he ranks 12th on the career wins list among the 129 Canadians who have pitched in the majors. Jenkins's 284 victories are more than twice as many as the second pitcher on the list, Ryan Dempster. "You knew who Fergie Jenkins was, because he's the best we've ever had, but I think like a lot of Canadians, I didn't even follow baseball as a kid, because I was a hockey fan," said Quantrill, who was 49 and pitched at the University of Wisconsin. "When I signed with the Red Sox, I could only name 2 or 3 guys on the team, and that was after going to college in the States." Ferguson Jenkins is the only Canadian in the Baseball Hall of Fame, but he never threw a no-hitter. 49 shutouts, he said. "But with no-hitters, you've got to have a bit of luck involved." Credit Brian Snyder/Reuters. Jenkins, who was from Chatham, Kent, Ontario, did not pitch until he was 16 years old. In the winters, he learned to perfect his command by throwing twice a week through movable strings at a local gymnasium. He became the first pitcher to finish his career with more than 3,000 strikeouts and fewer than 1,000 walks, a list that has since added Greg Maddux, Pedro Martinez, and Curt Schilling. Jenkins also threw 267 complete games in a career that stretched from 1965 to 1983. Paxton, a 6-year veteran, had never thrown a complete game before his no-hitter. "You can be pitching a no-hitter, but now, after 100 pitches, you're pretty much gone," Jenkins said. "Game has changed. The structure now is around the bullpen. When I broke in, there were only 9 pitchers on a staff. Sometimes now, you see 9 guys are in the bullpen. The manager has more opportunity to gravitate to different people." Paxton's no-hitter was the 3rd in the majors this season but only the 2nd complete game, after Oakland's Sean Manaea against Boston on April 21. On May 4, the Los Angeles Dodgers no-hit the San Diego Padres behind 6 innings from the rookie Walker Buehler, who threw 93 pitches, and an inning apiece from relievers Tony Cingrani, Yimi Garcia, and Adam Liberatore. That game took place in Monterrey, Mexico, which means that each no-hitter this season has been thrown in a different country. As for the chances of another Canadian repeating Paxton's feat, just 2 others have made starts in the majors this season, Nick Pivetta of the Philadelphia Phillies and Mike Soroka of the Atlanta Braves. Quantrill knows someone who might soon have a chance: his son, Gal, a Class A right-hander for the Padres who was drafted in the 1st round from Stanford in 2016. MLB.com and Baseball Prospectus ranked Cal Quantrill among the game's top 50 prospects before this season. "He threw a perfect game in high school," Paul Quantrill said, "but that was like a college pitcher facing 8-year-olds. I don't think he would even count it." Taking a chance on Matt Harvey. Matt Harvey made his first start as a Cincinnati Red against the Dodgers in Los Angeles on Friday. Credit Mark J. Terrell/Associated Press. Matt Harvey got a fresh start on his new baseball life with the Cincinnati Reds on Friday night, firing 4 shutout innings against the slumping Los Angeles Dodgers. He threw 32 strikes, matching his new uniform number, among his 55 pitches, and even hit 96 miles an hour on the Dodger Stadium scoreboard. "I haven't seen that in a while," Harvey said, according to C. Trent Rosecrans of The Athletic. "It's good to know it's still in there." For Cincinnati, whose 5.14 starters ERA ranked 26th in the majors through Friday, there was no downside in taking a chance on Harvey, who had run out of chances with the Mets. They traded catcher Devine Mesoraco, a former All-Star who lost his spot to Tucker Barnhart, and they are buried in the basement of the National League Central. The Reds believe Harvey has the weapons to at least have a chance to compete: a fastball usually around 92 miles an hour, with a decent changeup. If Harvey pitches poorly, the Reds cannot fall any further, and if he pitches well, the Reds could trade him to a contender this summer and continue their long rebuilding process. In other words, this may be only the first of several stops for Harvey, who had been a career Met. He is eligible for free agency after the season. A scary pitcher. The Rockies' Adam Ottavino retrained and invested in himself in the offseason, and he has become one of the most improved pitchers in the major leagues. Credit Justin Kayali/Getty Images. Adam Ottavino's off-season started last October 4, in the video room of the visitors' clubhouse at Chase Field in Arizona. That is where Ottavino watched the National League wildcard game between his team, the Colorado Rockies, and the Arizona Diamondbacks. The Rockies lost, 11-8, using 7 relievers who gave up 7 runs. Ottavino was not in the bullpen because he had not pitched well enough to deserve a spot on the roster. He had averaged 6.6 walks per 9 innings in the regular season, and he watched helplessly as Pat Neshek, a soft thrower with savvy, allowed a 2-run triple to an Arizona pitcher, Archie Bradley. "Pat's a great pitcher, but I'm, like, a scary pitcher, and I feel like in that matchup I could have been good," Ottavino said last week. "He was certainly better than me to pitch against hitters, but I felt like, versus a pitcher, I could frighten him." Hitters never like facing Ottavino, who averaged more than 10 strikeouts per 9 innings last season while allowing a .244 average. That told Ottavino his stuff was still plenty good enough to win, as long as he could use it for strikes. "If I can flip the count, I feel like I'm one of the best pitchers in the world with 2 strikes, Ottavino said, so I just wanted to get to that scenario as much as I could. To do it, Ottavino traveled to Seattle last fall and spent a week at the Driveline Pitching Complex, where high-speed cameras gave instant feedback on ways to improve his mechanics. He also designed a new pitch there, a cutter slider at around 86 miles an hour to fill in the gap between his 94 miles per hour fastball and 81 miles per hour slurve. I needed to have a little more direction of what to practice, Ottavino said. You only have so much practice time as a pitcher, you want to make sure you're doing it right, you can't throw all day. With a new foundation for how to work and what to emphasize, Ottavino returned home to New York, where he graduated from Berkeley Carroll School in Brooklyn in 2003, needing a place to throw. He used a vacant storefront between West 124th and 125th Streets on Nicholas Avenue in Harlem, between a Dollar Tree and a Chuck E. Cheese's, as Fangraphs noted. Owned by his father-in-law. Ottavino, 32, had purchased high-speed camera equipment for $18,000, and installed it there to capture the precise spin of his pitches. He also retrained his motor skills by practicing a drill he learned at Driveline, throwing a heavy ball, a light ball and a regular ball. Command is really all feel of release point, Ottavino said. When you're a kid, you throw tennis balls, you throw footballs, you throw dodgeballs, and it kind of just develops naturally. And then one day you become a pitcher and you only throw one thing for a really long time, and that feel starts to diminish a little bit. Add it all up, and Ottavino has become one of baseball's most improved pitchers. Entering a weekend series with the Milwaukee Brewers, he had a 1.35 earned run average, with 35 strikeouts and just 6 hits allowed in 20 innings. He had also cut his walk rate in half, to 3.2 per 9 innings, and, according to StatCast, he had the best spin rate for off-speed pitches in the National League through Wednesday. For Ottavino, who attended Northeastern, the curiosity to learn more about his craft, and the willingness to spend for his own equipment, could have a big payoff in free agency next winter. The resources now, it's off the charts, for the modern-day athlete. That's football, basketball, golf, you name it. Rockies manager Bud Black said, "It takes the right guy to be able to utilize this stuff. It's not for everybody. But for Adam, whose mind works in an analytical, processed, highly intelligent way, he can use this stuff, and it's great." Davey Johnson. In another chapter, Davey Johnson, 75, who last managed a team, the Nationals, in 2013, still watches baseball every day and has a memoir out. Credit Barton Silverman / The New York Times. Only 5 managers in baseball history had more victories and a higher winning percentage than Davey Johnson, who was 1,372 to 1,071 for a .562 winning percentage in 5 stops from 1984 to 2013. All 5 are in the Hall of Fame, but Johnson is not. He said it did not bother him. "I feel comfortable that I was a good influence on everybody I had and I didn't abuse anybody and shorten their career," Johnson said. Johnson is 75 now, retired and living in Florida, and his memoir, Davey Johnson, My Wild Ride in Baseball and Beyond, was published this month by Triumph Books. He said he watched baseball every day, paying close attention to his former teams, including the last one he managed, the Washington Nationals. That means he sees a lot of Steven Strasburg, the right-hander who led the NL in innings pitched, with 53 2/3, through Wednesday. When Johnson talks about protecting his players, he can take some pride in Strasburg's success. Strasburg, 29, is a 3-time All-Star with a $175 million contract in the prime of his career, seemingly validating the Nationals' infamous decision to shut him down in September 2012, before the playoffs. Strasburg had gone 15-6, but the Nationals were cautious with him in his first full season after Tommy John surgery. They lost in the division series that fall, and while they have won 3 more division titles under general manager Mike Rizzo, they have never escaped the first round. Johnson still laments the Strasburg decision. "The arm is a wonderful thing," he said. "It's kind of like the legs, the more you use them, the stronger they get." In pitching, consistent throwing patterns build strong, solid muscles. Johnson, who spent most of his playing career with Baltimore, said that George Bamberger, the Orioles pitching coach from 1968 to 1977, believed pitchers should throw for 15 minutes every day. But, he said, Bamberger's predecessor, Harry Breckin, who was nicknamed the Cat, felt the opposite. "He babied pitchers, and they all fell apart," Johnson said. "So I really believe that the more you stay on regular work, the less chance you have of injury." Now, doctors can come up and say things, really, to protect themselves. The manager and the pitching coach know how to protect a guy, but if the general manager and the team doctors say, "Shut him down," I don't have any decision on that. I have to shut him down. I didn't agree with it, but I shut him down. The best young pitcher Johnson ever managed, Dwight Gooden, worked 770 and 2/3 innings in his first 3 seasons, including the postseason. Before turning 22 years old, Gooden never pitched 200 innings in a season after turning 29, but Johnson said that a change in mechanics, and Gooden's substance abuse issues, caused his decline. He could say no, but he didn't know how to back it up. Johnson said, "I thought a good influence on him would have been Kevin Mitchell because Mitchell was a tough guy, and he knew how to say no." The Mets traded Mitchell to San Diego, over Johnson's objections. Shortly after winning the 1986 World Series, they got a productive hitter, Kevin McReynolds, in return, but Mitchell led the San Francisco Giants to the World Series in 1989. The Mets did not return until 2000, after they had gone through 4 more full-time managers. Johnson managed the Mets from 1984 to May 1990, and still recalls those days fondly. His brash, confident style, he said, was ideal for the New York media market. "I used to love doing a radio show," Johnson said. "I would know what the fans were thinking, and then I could tell them why they were wrong." Correction: an earlier version of this article misstated Harry Breckin's position in the Orioles organization. He was a major league coach, not a minor league